What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video. And today, I'm sorry to keep you guys waiting so long, but just less than 24 hours after the 2024 NFL draft ends, we're starting with 2025 NFL draft content. This is going to be a one-round mock draft. No trades because this draft order very well might be shifted up very soon. Makes it entertaining for us just to be able to dive in and be able to get to know the players and be able to have fun theorizing what will happen. Again, I already know there's going to be those people who still click on the video but then be like, these are useless. Yes, they are. They're useless for people who want to actually know what's going to happen in next year's draft. But they're not for the people who are just excited for more draft content and excited to get to know the players who will be on their teams in just about a year. So, don't be a dick. Let's get right into this, though. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Below my face is my board. It is not going to be color coordinated because the grades are not in. That kind of makes sense, right? But yes, I already have a big board for this. It is, of course, going to continuously be changing. But if you see anything wrong with it, feel free to call it out. Below that is going to be all the great ways to get involved with the community as well as take advantage of our sponsors of the show. Let's get right into this. Carolina Panthers starting out with their apparent #1 overall pick. I don't think they will be here at #1, so we'll keep that in mind. But, you could be thinking, oh, let's try to get an upgrade from Bryce. The quarterback class, I like Carson Beck as the #1 dude. None of these guys are remotely close to Bryce Young's talent, so let's get that out the window. I do think edge rusher certainly should be on a short list of items for the Panthers to target, no doubt in my mind. But realistically, I still think they need to boost their boundary cornerback position, and this is the class to do so. You got Travis Hunter, Ben Morrison, Will Johnson. Those are actually my top 3 players at the moment. Super excited for what they're going to bring to the NFL. This is a really solid edge class because a lot of the top dudes from this past class, or a lot of that middle tier of the dudes like Sawyer, Tumalau, Umamiland, Jackson, they returned to school with Barron as well. So we're essentially getting the 2nd to 3rd round edge rushers from this year's class we're going to develop, and then they're going to be still part of the next year's class. So it's going to be a stud group. Corner is still a really good class, but the top of the class is fantastic. And again, TBD if it's going to be better than the class that we just had. But, of course, everything is TBD. Will Johnson's going to be my pick here, though. The dude is just consistently locked down. People will pull up a highlight or two of him getting toasted, and I'm so happy the fact that people purposely search for why someone fails rather than why someone succeeds. It's a pretty good sign if someone's finding exclusively negative highlights, and there's not that many of them, of an elite player at an elite position. Will Johnson is a fantastic guy. Pick #2 for the New England Patriots. They'll have Drake May. They'll have their future #1 quarterback in Joe Milton. Jokes aside, though, I think that you could look at offensive tackle here. I know they got Caden Wallace, and I had Caden Wallace in my top 50. I don't trust his transition to left tackle as much as I want to, and that does leave the door open for Will Campbell. That being said, I do think edge rushers should be on the mind of the Patriots. James Pierce is a phenomenal edge rusher. I do have Harold Perkins above him, but not significantly. We're looking at it right here. It's 4 and 5, right? And James Pierce, he's built more like an actual edge rusher in the 240s, which it's not that big of an edge rusher, but of course, they don't even have him listed here as a. They have him probably listed as a linebacker. Oh, that's disrespectful to Harold Perkins. But Harold is in that 220 range, so he's a freak athlete. But I do think this is a prime opportunity to get a high value position with a very talented player. James Pierce popped off absolutely there at Tennessee. The fact they have both their edge rushers returning is phenomenal. He's a great player, deserves to at least be in the top 5. Denver Broncos at 3. Could have considered going quarterback here. I don't think the Denver Broncos are actually going to be here at 3. The connection between Bo Nix and Troy Franklin, I think, is going to be more applicable to the field than what I think the critics are saying. I love it to death. They have actually a really good receiving core. They have a good quarterback now as well. I have more faith in him than I did in Russell Wilson. We'll put it that way. I do think that Will Campbell should be on a short list of guys to go to the Broncos. I could say that you could even go after more receiving power here. Luther Burden is awesome. Tetraoa McMillan. And when you are looking at what the Broncos brought in, you got Troy Franklin, which is incredible, but he doesn't take over a role of Tetraoa McMillan, who is a fantastic build. 6'5", 205, really good route runner. I mean, I think this guy will be the first wide receiver off the board. But Luther is a slot, right? You look at him, 5'11", 208. Like, this guy's built like a much better version of Malachi Corley. Tetairoa McMillan is built like a supreme freak at the wide receiver position. Now, I do have this excitement that comes to getting Travis Hunter. I mean, you're in Denver, Colorado. That's Boulder, Colorado. You can get someone who potentially can play wide receiver, but more importantly, can absolutely be a dominant threat at corner next to Pat Surtain. I love that flexibility. Again, you're getting the kid who's right down the street. You saw 2 Utah players get drafted to the Broncos, which Utah relatively adjacent there to Denver. So, I do think they like to look for relatively local talent, and Travis Hunter is going to absolutely be on their radar. At pick number 4 for the Tennessee Titans, this could be where the first quarterback comes off the board if this is the case. If they end up being at pick 4, because they had a good draft, I feel like it was one of the drafts where I undergraded them at a B, which C is average for me, so I like their draft. Sitting on it more and more, I really like the draft. I still think they can have a tackle position open. If they're at number 4, there's something wrong, right? I mean, J.C. Latham must have not worked out as a left tackle, and then you still could have J.C. Latham as the right tackle. Kick Nicholas Petit-Ferrer's ass out of there, or kick him to guard, and then bring in Will Campbell here. That's something I fully support. Will is one of the guys who has an elite anchor, and I do see some inconsistencies with his game, but he's, I think, a little bit, I thought he was a little bit lighter than that. 6'6", 325 is a fantastic build. Like, that is a perfect definition of a left tackle. Missed out on Joe Alt. It is what it is. But I still think that, you're going to be going to year 2 of J.C. Latham, and you can kick J.C. back to his trusted position at right tackle. Again, this is all projection. But I think Will Campbell and J.C. Latham are 2 bookend tackles that you want for the future. You don't need defensive interior. I don't think you need corner either. Ben Morrison would be a fun one. I mean, to be fair, you got Cedric Gray in the 4th round. But Harold Perkins is kind of tempting. It is a little more tempting. Let's be positive. Let's be a positive outlook on J.C. Latham. Granted, PFF, not so much. We're going to go Harold Perkins here because he can be a pass rusher. He can be a linebacker. I like Cedric Gray, but I like him in rotation. I don't think he's a genuine starter, and I don't trust that the linebacker position is fully solidified. Is linebacker worth taking in the top 5? No, but Harold Perkins is an elite edge rusher. That's why you're taking him. You get someone who can play 2 positions at once. Hopefully you can bulk him up to 230, 235. Pick number 5 for the New York Giants. Maybe you could boost him up to 240. That'd be sick. But the New York Giants at pick number 5. This is where you could start considering Carson Beck. And I think this is where we would end up going that route. But let's evaluate the other talent on the board. So looking at the other guys, you still could get a boundary 1. That's a little bit ludicrous with Malik Neighbors there. But Tetairoa McMillan and Malik Neighbors would be a nasty combo on the outside. It's pretty obvious if you're at 5, your quarterback's the reason you didn't get there. We're going to go Carson Beck, who's the best quarterback in the class from initial evaluation. Shadur Sanders has his own potential problems with, Daddy Sanders having too much reign over. There's just that's just a big off the field red flag. It's too much of it. I don't want to deal with that personally if I'm running an organization. I absolutely despise Quinn Ewers deep ball, so don't worry, I'm not going to be trying to talk shit on Shadur Sanders, but not leave some for the rest. There's a lot of crap to be dished around for this quarterback class. Genuinely speaking, I am not a fan of it at all. Carson Beck, though, is a quarterback that I do like. He was someone where I was like, I feel like we're undervaluing him. Quarterbacks that I think should get a little bit more respect, since I don't really know how many more I'll be drafting. Dylan Gabriel is a fun one. He'll be like a 3rd to 4th round guy. He's just super small. If I'm not mistaken, he's sub 6 foot. Yeah. So he'll, even if he succeeds, which I think he will there, not at Oklahoma, at Oregon. I don't know why you can't update the freaking logos, y'all. I mean, PFF can easily do that. That's a simple roster update. I don't know what's up with that. For me, I have to manually go in and do it, but here's what it is. Connor Wegman has that potential, absolutely. I don't know if any of the other QBs will really sneak up. Drew Allar is, I like the backup QB for Penn State more than Drew Allar. Forgetting his name, but I watch his QB coach on Instagram, and it's actually really fun to watch him. But at number 6, the Commanders are here. I highly doubt it. I mean, they didn't have a very overwhelming draft to me, but it wasn't a bad draft. But this is still a team that needs a left tackle. Will Campbell is perfect for that. I just don't trust the Commanders to do the right thing, apparently, after round 1. So let's make sure they do the right thing in round number 1. Will Campbell out of LSU. Pick number 7 for the Arizona Cardinals. I do think they should be looking potentially at some extra edge rush help, but I mean, I'd go Tacario Davis or Ben Morrison here because I love Tacario Davis. But like Ben Morrison would be my pick, except you guys drafted a couple corners in this past draft who I think are starter quality. You just don't have someone who is like your corner core is small as all get out. Like you're talking about like at least Elijah Jones is 6'2", but he's like 180. Then you have Max Melton, who's just around 6 foot, if not sub 6 foot, 190. And then you also have Garrett Williams, who's 5'11". And he's not poorly built, but he's not a big ass dude either. So I am genuinely scared for the Cardinals corner core. I don't think I would put it out of the realm of possibility for us to try to target Ben Morrison, but again, it's not like Ben Morrison is a, big statured player either. The one who I would recommend for you guys to draft, and he's not even on here, it's Price Sock. Tacario Davis, Tacario Davis is a 6'4" one. That would be the one that I'd debate on for 7. Like, I love Tacario Davis and, what's his name? Ephesians Price Sock at 27 on my board. Like, I really love those players a lot. I just don't think that, I don't know if they go at number 7. I don't know. And I'm trying to remember if any of them went to Washington. You guys got to correct me on that. It's slipping the top of my mind at the moment, but that could be something that's a little inconsistent on my board is the guys who transferred because this was made during last year. But defensive interior, I still think is a massive area of improvement. And Mason Graham's solid. Dayon Walker's awesome to me. This guy's a pure nose. I think he's 330 pounds, right? Oh, he's even bigger than that. But this guy's a physical freak. I'm going to be drafting him to y'all. This guy is worth the selection in the top 10. He is a monster. Pass rusher, too. Good push on the pocket. Definitely a lot, not a very flashy pick, but something that you definitely need. Pick number 8 for the Minnesota Vikings. That's interesting. I don't know if Minnesota's going to be there either. They're a really good franchise. They didn't do the best draft after the 4th round, but that's just because it's what they passed on rather than what they got. I think interior offensive line could be within the realm of possibility, but I just don't see very many very good options here. I would say this is a perfect opportunity for Luther Burden to go into the slot. I don't see an elite slot on the Vikings at the moment. Just saying. Could totally see that. I could totally see them going Ben Morrison or Tacario Davis at this point as well. Not many positions the Vikings genuinely need. And I want to go after probably best player available. They have their boundaries set. I would not go Tetrio McMillan. We're going to go after best player available and Luther Burden. Mason Graham's a really good name to throw into that hat, but why not get even more powerful in your receiving core when you have 2 elite receivers and then you can now have 3? I mean, it's a simple addition, right? And all of them are going to be super young too, so I love that for them. At pick number 9 for the Las Vegas Raiders. They missed out on QB last time. I debate on them losing out on QB this time. But Shedeur is the second best quarterback in the class. He is. And this team will be looking for an upgrade at QB. Granted, I don't know if they need it as much as what we say they do. And I don't know if Shedeur is the upgrade that we say he'd be. But we're going to do it anyways. Shedeur Sanders, quarterback, Colorado. Pick number 10 for the Seattle Seahawks. You got your defensive interior. You've got your offensive line going. There's not very many positions I think the Seahawks need to target. But DK, if I'm not mistaken, will be coming up on a contract. That might be slipping my mind. But a wide receiver is certainly still on the board. We do have a wide receiver on your team right now in Lockett that is not getting any younger. Yes, you ended up drafting a wide receiver in the 1st round for that reason. But there's no way the Seahawks are at 10th overall. But there's not a good enough quarterback for us to take here either. I think the best value is to go after receiver. Could go Mecca Ibuka, but then you're getting essentially 2 of the guys who Ohio State kind of liked more in the slot to pair up with each other. I do love that, that synergy there. But getting a 6'5" target and obviously having DK Metcalf there, that's worth its weight in gold. So we're going to be going after Tetrioa McMillan here, one of my favorite players in this class. At pick number 11, let's see, do I have anybody else who I love on the board? I have number 2 overall with Ben Morrison. But the rest of my top 10, I think, has now been taken except Michael Williams. But at number 11 for the New Orleans Saints, they've done a really good job. Really good job. Got some nice boundary corners, some good offensive linemen. They got their quarterback potentially of the future as well. So, I mean, it's very difficult to choose a better route here than maybe edge rusher. And Nick Scourton had a really solid year. But I also do see Malachi Starks being a dark horse pick. Safety's not a very heavily valued position, but he is a monster. Like, the reason I didn't really love Javon Bullard is because of how good Malachi Starks was, and you could see the talent differential there. I do think that with the aging safety core of the Saints, Malachi Starks certainly could be like right up there with the best of the best. And in round 2, like when you can get edge rushers like Princely Umanmielen, I think it's worth taking the swing on the supreme talent of Malachi Starks here early. At pick 12 for the Buccaneers, they would be looking for a QB, but I just do not think this is the class. First round went Graham Barton, went after edge rusher in round 2, went after a receiver and a DB in round number 3. So, your primary guys that you drafted certainly hold a lot of weight in terms of being very solid floor guys. So it's not going to be an instant need for me still to refill. That being said, Abdul Carter's listed as a linebacker. He's supposed to be transitioning to edge rusher. He's going to be a hybrid. In my opinion, he's a fantastic linebacker and a fantastic edge rusher. Maybe a little bit worse of an edge rusher. And that's a little bit of a hot take at this moment, but of course, I really love Abdul as a linebacker. This could end up being a Micah Parsons level pick, but the Buccaneers need both, right? I don't really trust Chris Braswell to be the end-all be-all. So we're going to be going Abdul Carter here, linebacker / edge rusher out of Penn State. We'll scroll down a little bit. Well, we still have Ben Morrison on the board. Actually, speaking of a perfect fit for Ben Morrison, the Colts, who got a killer round 1 and 2, and then to me, relatively underwhelmed for the rest of the draft. They still need a boundary corner 1. I mean, there were some really good ones that were still available, and they started passing on them for developmental safeties, if not linebacker hybrids. So I'm going Ben Morrison. Let's not overthink this. I mean, you need a boundary corner. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's a fantastic corner. And it kills me because I would have loved him to go to the Steelers. So we will finally be able to roll down to Michael Williams here. Steelers, I assume if we're at 14, we'll re-sign Justin Fields to a shorter-term contract and just see how he goes. So I still think Decario Davis is right there on the board. The amount of size that our corner core will have is ridiculous if that's the case. We invested a lot in the offensive line. I think this is the year that we can invest a lot into that defense. Decario Davis at 6'4" is incredible. You bring him up with why am I forgetting Joey Porter Jr.'s name? Joey Porter Jr., who is obviously one of the best young corners in the NFL. Decario Davis is going to be my guy. So starting out early, I mean, we'll see in all 22 how much of a guy how much of a my guy he is, but like this is a guy who I'm going to be sticking my flag to. It's very rare that you see a corner with so much production at 6'4". So the Steelers get themselves a really good one there. 15 for the Rams. Started out by getting Braden Fiske as well as why am I forgetting Jared Verse's name? Man, it's early in the morning. As you can tell, I'm trying to get my rest and I am failing to do so. But, the Rams have targeted pretty efficiently so far. I mean, they haven't done a bad job at all. I do think that Kelvin Banks should be on their radar here. You have a 1-year contract with Alaric Jackson. I think that it's very, very smart to do. Jonah Monheim, can't believe he went back. I mean, that dude has an awful anchor. It's going to be tough for him to work out in the NFL, but I'm very excited. He's a good blocker. It's just the anchor is Garbo. Johnny Cornelius, if I'm not mistaken, he's going to be the right tackle because he was last year. And, he's pretty much a guard for me. Emory Jones, he's a right tackle. Jonas Savagnia, he was a right tackle. We'll see if he does that again this year. I think Kelvin Banks, the value is just too good to pass on. So we're going to be on Kelvin Banks out of Texas. At pick 16 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we still have Michael Williams on the board. But this is another team that just did not draft their boundary number 1. Didn't do it. And they had some great opportunities too. You know what's great? This cornerback class has some good dudes. Denzel Burke was going to rise up my board to the top 20. So Denzel Burke is going to be the selection there. He is fantastic. You need it. You do. You can't say that you don't. You do. At number 17, the Cleveland Browns are on the board for the first round pick in a hot freaking minute. I would love Mason Graham, but they already went defensive interior. I don't know with the contracts that they signed in the offseason as well, if they're going to be looking to address defensive interior. I really like Mason Graham. There's no shade thrown his way. I think that this is a perfect opportunity for Nick Scourton to develop. I know they have Isaiah McGuire there, who y'all know I used to love. But, I still think you can certainly get an upgrade at that edge 2 position for the long run. There's a lot of players I really like here, Mykel Williams especially. You want to look at the difference between Nick Scourton. He's a bigger guy, 260. If I'm not mistaken, I thought he was up to 270 for a point of the year. And, okay, thanks, PFF. Well, fix your mock draft simulator, bro. But we're looking right here at Mykel Williams as well, who's in that 265 range. He is too good to pass on. I mean, I think he's going to develop so well. I saw him at the All-American Bowl, and he just popped off instantly. So somebody who I really love. A lot of these players, actually, that I'm going to be drafting are guys that I've written down from watching the All-American Bowl when they were first becoming freshmen. So that was pretty fun when it was fully on YouTube. Like, definitely a way for you guys to get excited for guys to be on your potential college teams as well as in the future years of the NFL draft. Pick number 18 for the Chicago Bears. They made the playoffs. That's awesome. I still think, even though they got Austin Booker, they could certainly use an upgraded edge rusher. That also being said, Keenan Allen's not going to probably be there as of this moment. Emeka Egbuka combined with DJ Moore combined with Rome Odunze sounds like one hell of a receiving core. And I don't know if they could pass on that. They have Karan Amagaji developing as their left tackle. And you do have Evan Stewart here, though. I do want to look at him. Evan Stewart's fantastic. He's right there, like with Emeka Egbuka for me, 13 and 14 on my board, respectively. Completely different styles of receiver. I love them both. You can do whichever one that you like. But I cannot pass on Emeka Egbuka. I just love him. He's a bigger frame guy who's used to playing in the North. I cannot pass on that. Emeka Egbuka, he's a stud. I love him to death. It's just, we already have some really good talents in this class. Pick number 19 for the Chargers. They got Brendan Rice, 7th round. I'm still waiting to hear about why he slipped, because there's obviously a reason outside of his play. Like, there's a lot of bum-ass receivers that went before him that were 10 times worse. So there's something going on there. But I do think this is not a bad location to go after Evan Stewart. I think edge rusher, you have your contingency plan there in Tuli Tuipulotu. You could end up still going after Nick Scourton here, or you could go after a developmental edge rusher from Ohio State. Absolutely. But I'm not going to do that. You did end up drafting your future at right tackle. I love that for you guys as well. I do still think you need to go after... Oh, you got Ladd McConkey, dude. I really wanted to go Evan Stewart here. Yeah, Ladd McConkey, Joe Alt, Brendan Rice. And then you got Junior Colson too. Fantastic. Let's bring Mason Graham in. Talk about a perfect match made in heaven. They do need to get some extra boost in the defensive interior, and then you get him back with his DC. Pick number 20 for the Houston Texans. This is where you could start looking at an edge rusher because it's only a 3-year contract there for Danielle Hunter. But let's look at other options as well. You will be needing a wide receiver. You will be. I mean, there were a lot of shanks on the Texans draft. They ended off with 2 really good picks, though. But, you're going to be having 1 year with Stephon Diggs. I totally can see Evan Stewart right down the road going to Houston and lighting it up. It's going to be a little bit of a thin receiving core, but sometimes the best player available is the best player available. We're going to go Evan Stewart here. Pick number 21 for the New York Jets. Potentially Colston Loveland could be the option here. I really like Colston Loveland. I'm glad that, we're already seeing an early positive trend for Colston Loveland. But looking at my board, my next best available actually is JT Tuimoloau. I've actually drafted 16 of my top 20 guys in the top 20. I love that. That's awesome. I mean, I've also drafted technically Tao Johnson. Oh, God, he's not even listed, I don't think. God, man, Tao Johnson's a monster. He's not even listed. He's like Jabbar Muhammad. They're both slots. They're fantastic corners. Fantastic. Because Jabbar, he's a small dude, but it was a great decision by him to go back to school. Regardless, the Jets at this point, they'll be potentially needing a contingency plan at QB. I just don't think any of the guys are worth it. I hate to say it. Connor Wegman, maybe, but I don't see any right now. I can't pull that trigger. Tackle is secured for the future, even though they still technically could go after a right tackle here in like Jonas Savagnia. I'm going to trust the development of the guys who are underneath. I was just not ready to let Max Mitchell be a starting caliber player. Receiver, they've done a good job at filling that. But granted, Trey Harris, when you do look at Mike Williams, it's not like he's there forever. Trey Harris is a dog. He is a dog. Tez Johnson as well, one of my favorite players in this class. Like, totally could see, I mean, he's completely different though. He's a slot. There's no reason for Tez to the Jets, but Trey Harris is a monster, man. He's going to be fun to watch. Absolutely. He's going to be a monster. So, looking at other options for the team, I'm actually starting to lean very heavily towards Trey Harris. But, I mean, defensive interior, they've always tried to look at upgrade there. Howard Cross, I mean, he's just very small. He'll be a DPR. He'll be a guy in round 2, very similar. Very similar in terms of his overall impact to Michael Hall of last year. Tyleek's a beast. Guys who could rise. I love Walter Nolan. This guy is a freak show. Like, he's on the smaller side, but he's essentially like reincarnate version of, who's the guy on the Steelers? I'm a Steelers fan. I should know this. DeMarvin Leal. Just a guy who I think should be either putting a little bit more weight on or moving to big edge. But Bear Alexander as well. He transferred to Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. I know he transferred somewhere. Feel free to drop that down in the comment section below. Really irritating that they don't have that updated, because for me, I mean, after remembering everybody from the other class, it's quite nice to like look at Quinshon Judkins and, you know, hopefully see an Ohio State logo there. I don't even know if Jabbar Muhammad stayed in Washington, by the way. His coach, if I'm not mistaken, went to Alabama. So feel free to, again, point all of that stuff out. Jonas Savagnia is such a good player. He's a fun one to watch. But I actually might go for the tight end route here. I might do it. Mitchell Evans and Colston Loveland are my top 2 options. I will be going Colston Loveland, though. He's a very talented tight end. Pick number 22 for the Atlanta Falcons. I don't see him being here. I thought they kind of butchered their draft. And, you know, they looked at the future when the gap is, or the opportunity is here in the present. I've already talked about that ad nauseum, though, so we're not going to continue pounding in on that. I do think they should look for some extra receiver help for the future. A lot of guys on 1 or 2 year contracts. We're going to be going Trey Harris here out of Ole Miss. He is ridiculous. I mean, I was talking him up for the Jets. He's worth it here for the Falcons. At pick 23 for the Dolphins, a draft where I'm getting a little bit of pushback. I just was lower on the players overall. I didn't see very much impact right away when I needed to see offensive line that could make an immediate impact. That's just me, though. I mean, again, I'm hoping that I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the majority of Dolphins fans absolutely detest that they ended up missing out on a really good offensive line. This is just not a very good interior offensive line class. The only guy I have, I think, within my top 30. Do I even have him in my top 32? I'm trying to see it right now. Would be Tyler Booker, who's at number 37. I'm not going to reach for y'all. I wouldn't do that. You already got receiver, which is great. You already got running back, which, you know, to me, I'm not a huge fan of that. But tight end Mitchell Evans is freaking dog. He's a dog, man. I mean, this is somebody who I totally can see being a first-round player. I thought he was better than what's his name? Why am I forgetting names all of a sudden? Than the tight end on the Raiders that is slipping my mind. But, well, the one that's not Brock Bowers. That's the good news. But Mitchell Evans is going to be a massive addition there. He's a good blocker as well. Pick number 24 for the Green Bay Packers. Could totally see Nick Scourton being a great choice for him. Again, I'm trying to find a way to sneak him into this draft, but probably not going to happen. You guys had so many picks last year, or this past draft, to where it's like, damn, I don't really see very many issues to fulfill. And if you're right here at 24, there's not really very many areas that we need to fill. But I kind of want to go Tez Johnson. Alec Eyomanor, he was the guy with like the 200-some yards in a game. Wild. Juice Wells, love him as well. But like if I'm drafting here for the Packers, I mean, Tez Johnson, Isaiah Bond too. He went to Texas though. Tez Johnson's such a dog. He is so fun to watch, man. So fun to watch. But I know you guys got 3 defensive backs in this past draft. I still am over the moon for Xavier Nwankpa, another player who I fell in love with at his All-American Bowl. I'm debating really heavily going that route. That being said, Kobe Bryant's fun too. That guy that guy's a dog. Looking at my next best corner, Ephesians Prysock. Definitely think he could be a really good choice for you guys here. Getting a true boundary corner. That's not a bad idea. That's actually what I'm going to do. He's not even listed, so of course we're going to select a player that I would never select in the first round for this one right here. So this is going to be Ephesians Prysock, corner, formerly out of Arizona. We'll see if he's still there, because like deep down I'm worried that he went to Washington with his coach. Pick number 25 with the Dallas Cowboys. End up drafting edge, offensive tackle, center, kind of like the three positions they needed to early on. Good for y'all. I will be looking potentially in the linebacker room. You got Danny Stutzman here. This is a first-round linebacker. This is a guy who was a guaranteed second in like a flex first. Probably would have been the top linebacker not named Edgerrin Cooper in the class. And he's much more of an actual linebacker than Edgerrin Cooper is, who is very much developing as a great athlete. He's the perfect build for a linebacker too. Barrett Carter's fun. He's a little bit undersized though. Jayshawn Barham, he's a good player too. 99% sure he transferred to Michigan, which is ridiculous. So keep that in mind. But he, as a true freshman, was someone who caught my eye a little bit on the lighter side, though. So for me, I do really like Danny Stutzman here. You know, you do need to have a contingency plan at linebacker, in my opinion. And Maurice DeLufau, I just really didn't like that pick. I just really did not. I thought you hit on the majority of your other picks. That was just not one of them. And I think I'm going to call it a bust early. So we're going to go Danny Stutzman. And I'm hoping I'm wrong again. But this is the way. Pick number 26 for the Philadelphia Eagles. Nick Skeleton's almost impossible to pass on at this point. You've addressed your secondary valiantly. Slot's still up in the air. So, I mean, hell, talk about a perfect spot for Tao Johnson, who's a slot safety out of Utah. But I just don't think Howie would value that to that degree. And you have a developing edge rusher in Jalix Hunt. But after this year, you'll essentially have Jalix Hunt, Nolan Smith, and then also Bryce Huff. He loves having 4 edge rushers, and you have one that's an extreme project there in Jalix Hunt, who I actually really like. I grew on that pick. But Nick Skeleton's, that is somebody to replace a day one every down starter. So Nick Skeleton out of Purdue. It reminds me of being back in the day going after the Kansas City first round edge rusher George Karlaftis for the Eagles. But that's a Josh Sweat replacement to a T. Pick number 27 for the Detroit Lions. I thought they negated a lot of positions that I thought they should have looked at, like edge rusher in their draft. And luckily for them, there's some really good ones that are still on the board here. If I'm not mistaken, you have a 1-year contract there. Why am I forgetting the name of the former New Orleans Saints edge rusher? Forgetting off the top of my head, but it is what it is. But you're going to have a hole opening up at edge rusher probably this year. And I think JT Tuimoloau is a perfect complement there. Getting a Michigan and Ohio State rivalry in the same locker room sounds a little ludicrous, but JT Tuimoloau is a great edge rusher, and I'm all here for it. Pick number 28 for the Cincinnati Bengals. They could try to develop Jack Sawyer, but I would not recommend it at all. The Bengals had a really good draft. I still think they could go after wide receiver, though. Isaiah Bond, now at Texas, he's a little bit of a skinny guy. I don't think that, it depends on where you might see Jermaine Burton ending up. Alec Illuminor is a fun one, though. Torrey Horton, that's a good player as well. I mean, there's some good players in this class. But looking at my board, best available, I do still think they could go after a top-tier running back. And this might be where we see the first running back come off the board. We have some dogs in this class. It's just a super deep class. Like round 2, I think is going to be littered with running backs. Because you can pass on one in round 1, but you cannot pass on it in round 2 because there's some good players. Ollie Gordon's a home run hitter. He's a monster. Quinshon Judkins, I mean, this guy was supposed to be like a top 10 type of pick for a running back. He's awesome. He just had a little bit of an off year. Amari Hampton's an absolute stat machine. Trey Henderson's a good player too. Ashton Gentry, he's a beast. I like Ashton Gentry a lot. He is a bowling ball, dude. 5'8", 205 pounds. Like Trevor Etienne as well, Devin Neal. This is the class for a running back. Maybe not here, but I want to feature one. So we're going to go Ollie Gordon. Here you go. You guys can see the stats on him. 6'1", 211. That's an elite build for running back. And, Oklahoma State has brought in some really good talents there. At pick 29 for the Buffalo Bills. They got Ray Davis, speaking of a bowling ball, in the 4th round. But, looking at the options available, I could see them going after some extra cornerback assistance, even though they've done a very good job over the offseason. I don't really think there's very many positions for the Bills to target. Like, Tez Johnson overlaps a lot with what they have already. I would say this is where I'd take a swing on a bigger receiver as well to pair up. I mean, you don't even have Gabe Davis anymore. I don't really think that, the free agent acquisition. Why am I forgetting? He's from the Panthers as well as from the Commanders. Names are not my thing today. I don't think that he's going to be the end all be all. We're going to go Alec Illuminor here because that's a real wide receiver 2/1 for you to have. Pick number 30 for the Baltimore Ravens. You got your future offensive tackle, which is great, even though I would love to go Jonas Savagnia here. If you end up struggling, that's a really good option. You ended up getting some good running back help, even though I didn't really fully agree with it. I think this could be actually where you go after another one of those top running backs like Quinshon Judkins, Marion Hampton, Ashton Gentry. Like, absolutely on my board right now. Looking at other options, though, it's so tough to pass on Tao Johnson, but you can't have that small of a DB core. Damn, I really wanted that for y'all. I really did. You know what? I still think you can, again, upgrade an edge rusher, though. I'm not over the moon about, you got good value on him, but that's where I had, damn, I'm really struggling on names today. But Penn State edge rusher, Adiza Isaac. I think this is a proper opportunity to develop a player like Princely Umamilan. This is a guy who you can definitely count being better than what you would have had there in Adiza. Pick 31 for the Niners. They could certainly be developing Jack Sawyer. They have not addressed edge rusher very well, in my opinion. They ended up getting Drake Nugent and UDFA, so I do think they can have some future there. But they also did not really address right tackle very well. I'm going to be going Jonas Savagnia, the opposite tackle there to Jordan Morgan, who's a former first-round pick. But look at that size, 6'5", 335. The exact opposite of Jordan Morgan. At pick 32 for the Chiefs and ending off my first ever way too early mock draft. Sucks that I can't get Xavier Nwankpa in here because, maybe I could have taken him for the Ravens, but, that's someone who I really want to put in here. I don't think the Chiefs would be biting on that. They just got Jaden Hicks. Not many positions that Chiefs need to go. Really not many. Could look at that first tight end besides this, but I honestly don't think it's any of these three tight ends. I think it's Brinstool out of Clemson. I think that guy's phenomenal. Really good player. So if I had to go after another position here, I would trade out of the spot. Spoiler alert, I would trade out of the spot because I really want Nwankpa to go, and I do think there's not a drop-off, but I just want him to go so badly. But regardless, for the Chiefs specifically, I could certainly see them still looking to upgrade an offensive tackle, but they already went and addressed that early on. I don't think that's going to be the route that they go. Could be a route for running back because Pacheco, not going to be someone who you have forever, but you still are looking for a bigger wide receiver for the boundary. Xavier Restrepo is very underrated. You just got to watch out for the height in that receiving room. Torrey Horton, forgetting how tall he is, that's going to be the pick. I really like Torrey Horton. He probably won't go in the first round, but that's a trade back target for me nonetheless. That's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. Get excited for this next year because it's going to be a great one. See you on the far side. Peace.